Hello. So here's a little bonus demo exploring shadows and fog, just lighting in general a little bit more to do this little landscape thing. So what we'll do, we're using a grid, some noise, some other things. Let's start from scratch. I'll just make another little container here. I'll go into that, and let's just make this from scratch. So to start, we haven't talked a whole lot about a grid SOP, but this is also a very useful SOP. If I can click this here, go to display, see points. So we can see that it's not just like a rectangle, it's a whole matrix of points. So this is going to be our ground, essentially, for our landscape. So right now it is set on the XY plane. Let's change that to ZX. And so let me just turn these points off, actually. So we won't see anything, but then, right, it's still there. It's just kind of level with the camera. So right off the bat, I know I want to increase the size of this. You can kind of play around with these numbers, but something like that is what I want. And I'm going to increase the rows and columns also. And also quickly to see this, we can like view active, right click and toggle shaded wireframe. You can kind of see middle click to zoom in. You can kind of see the divisions there. So it doesn't have to be perfect. That's good enough for me right now. And then next, I'm just going to add a noise. Now I don't want, so by default, the noise always has this absolute time.seconds already kind of built in. Don't want that. I just want like a static type of thing. Also, that's like way too much, so maybe like bring that down a little bit. Okay, and so that looks pretty good. It looks like we're getting this kind of like undulating hills thing. This is what we're going for. The thing about normals, though, so let's see. So what we just did with the noise, we changed the point position. So essentially, we took the XYZ coordinates for all of the points and randomized it a little bit. That did not, however, change the point normals. So you can kind of see all the normals are still pointing completely up, straight up, because that's how they were when we generated the grid over here. So by changing the noise with just the point positions, we did not actually change the normals. So this affects how light kind of shines on that. Light like reflects off of that point and then hits the camera. So it's going to look fairly weird until we fix that. I'm just going to turn that off for now. And so what we can do is I'm going to go ahead and do attribute create, and we can compute normals with this. And right there you can see total difference, right? So now if we do display normals, let's have a look at this. See, looky there. So all of the normals are now kind of pointing, depending on the certain like mathematical value of how that point is. It kind of computes. Tangents are involved with that also, but it's you can kind of see the difference, right? So this is why normals are important. So we can see that light shining off of that better now. So that's good enough for now. Let's go ahead and add geometry. Let's go ahead and just get all of our important stuff. Do camera. We'll do light. And kind of what I showed before. Also, I like to color code things sometimes. So I hit C, and I'll give that yellow, and I'll give this a little teal color. Cool. And let's do a render. And I'm going to go ahead and do an out over here. Okay, cool. So looks like our camera is a little bit below our plane. We could translate this up a little bit, right? I'm going to go ahead and add a null comp for the look at, because as I move my light and my camera around, I want it to kind of automatically, look down at our landscape. So I'll just do a null comp and just drag that into the look at for cam and for light. And I'll just leave the null at 0, 0, 0. I don't really care with moving that around right now. So for light, let's move that up. Maybe a little bit to the side. Let's see how that looks. So we can kind of like see where our light is right now. Cool. So by default, our camera is at 5. We can kind of see this also. Geometry viewer. Okay, cool. That's where we're at. Light's kind of way back there. Okay. So what I kind of want, I want to position my camera so I just have a good view of kind of like down kind of low. I mean, that looks pretty good. Let me see if I can get that down. Maybe switch this around a little bit. That looks pretty good, actually, right? Just, you know, I want something with a view, but still kind of get a sense of all the different hills and things. And maybe actually, let's widen this a little bit more. There we go. Seem like adding new land over there. Cool. And what if I back a little bit more? All right, so I don't want this to be visible there. So we kind of like tweak this as you like. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll make the hills a little bit bigger. Okay, cool. All right. Oh, I like that. That's pretty good. All right, now it's like little mountains. Okay, so you know, I could see the resolution. You know, it's still pretty sharp because I'm only looking. I could see where my camera is there. So you know, my total number of points on my grid I made was like 50-50, but my camera view, you know, it's only getting a portion of that. If the smoothness of this really matters, then I would go back in here. I would just like boost that up as much as it needed to be, and then keep adjusting, right, to get the view right. For now, I don't really care about it. I think it's just fine. We'll keep the point light. That's good for now. Let's add a little color map for our landscape. So let's do. So far we've been mostly looking at Phong. We're going to talk about all these other mats soon, but maybe just keep it easy. We'll do a Phong for now. Okay. And I don't really care about changing the color of this right now, but I'm going to, one thing I will show, which we talked about a little bit, was a color map. So if I get something like a noise top, I can drag that into color map, and then voila, the texture is applied to the material, and the material is applied to the geometry. So we get a kind of cool effect like this. I'm going to do maybe bigger period. Yeah, make that a little kind of bigger and more blurry. And I want maybe more on the bright side, let's say. Just kind of subtle shadows. And you know I'm going to animate this. Let's do to translate. So instead of doing Z, I want this to be in the Y, let's say, because if I do Y, you can kind of see it's the same noise pattern. It just kind of like moves. So let's do absolute time dot seconds. That's way too fast. Something like that. So now it kind of looks like there's slowly moving clouds going across the landscape. All right, that's cool. Okay, so what's next? Let's do a background. I'm gonna do insert operator, ramp. Let's do our sky. So by doing that, I just kind of erased everything. But what we can do, go into output, comp with input, operation. Let's do an over, swap order. Beautiful, right? So now we can see our input is being composited with our ramp, and we got the order correct. It's just doing like this over that. Beautiful. So let's change that to vertical, and then we can kind of just play around. It looks like white is at the top, so let's do kind of a bluish, kind of light bluish thing, and then down at the bottom, let's do kind of just like bright. Make that a little bit. Oh, right. Oh, look at this. I forgot. Change the phase a little bit. So right now it's set to repeat. So it gets to this key and then it repeats to this key where it goes from like blue to white. Don't want that. So let's do hold. Oh wait. Hold. Oh, actually there's like a little, okay. There was a secret little white key there that was still hiding. That's why it did that. Okay, so now if I can kind of play around with this, and it's not going to repeat. It's just going to hold these last colors. That's kind of like, right? Sunrise, something like that. Okay, that's fine for now. You can tweak that some more. So okay, what else should we do? Let's do rim lighting, and then we'll do fog. I'm going to go into my Fong here, go into rim, and I'm going to create a rim light that is kind of like that grayish blue color, right? So that's kind of gives it a little reflective type of feeling. Okay. Not bad. In the future, when we dive more into all the mats, PBR especially, there's something called environment light, which is amazing. I love it. I use it in everything. That's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for this type of environmental reflection type of things in like really beautiful ways. For now, we can, I think this looks pretty good with just a little rim light. And let's add some fog. So let's do settings, fog. Let's just do linear. And so now it's just a matter of, okay, fog near and far. So let's see, our camera's at like 6. Let's just get a sense of this here. Let's go back to geometry. Kind of see the line of sight here. Okay, so I've kind of got it at an angle, so it's a little harder to guess, I guess, but that's 10. So this is basically z equals 5. So if I had to guess, this is basically z equals, or that's -5, this is +5. So if camera from like here up until there, it's roughly 10. So, which is what it already is set at, right? So we can just play around with, we can kind of see that. If the far value is closer, if you remember, that means when it's 4.6 units away, it is at maximum fog. Let's do 8 and see how that looks. Color, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of shift this into this kind of bluish thing, maybe make it brighter. There we go. Something like that. Okay. Oh, that's kind of cool. So now I'm seeing, you can kind of see as I'm adding the fog, it's adding it even to the this alpha, the alpha 0 section right here. And then when that gets kind of comped over the sky, it's also kind of adding it to the sky, which is kind of like blowing it out a little bit. So I'm going to go back here, and I just want to, I'm going to just darken up the sky a little bit so it doesn't get all the way to white. It looks kind of like greenish now, kind of a teal. So, you can like have a ball with this, whatever. So as you kind of change the sky, then we can go back and change some other things, right? It's endless process of tweaking all this. I could also, instead of white right here, what could I do? I could do something like, yeah, let's do this. What if I took the ramp? Oh wait, no, I don't want that. You know what? I'm going to copy, paste, and instead of that, I'm going to do that. There we go. Just to see how that looks, right? Kind of using that same ramp color for my noise. So here already you can kind of see, oh, you know what? I should have just done a null top right there and a reference to the null. Oops, come back. RGB. There we go. So now it's going to use this kind of slightly blue color also for those. So I don't know. That looks, it's fine. Color's not perfect, but I'm happy with it. Fine. It's fine enough. So let's do some other object. I'm going to do a box, and I'm going to make it kind of a distorted thing. I'll do a noise. Same thing. I'm going to turn this off. And then I'll add a wireframe 0.01. So already you can kind of see, okay, when the box goes into the noise, each face kind of behaves differently. So you might recall I mentioned before, there's 24 points here actually. If I look at my points, you would think that there's only 8 points, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. But actually, in each of these little corners, there's 3 different points because each face has its own point. You can change that. If we go to box, consolidate corner points. Look at that. Now there's only 8. So now there's only 1 point for each corner. Therefore, the noise gives the random XYZ coordinates for just those 8 points, and thus kind of keeps the corners in one position, so the faces still kind of touch each other. And so then when I do this wire, right, they all kind of connect instead of being all kind of crazy and separated. So that's a cool little trick. Also, by the way, you can kind of explore divisions. Can be kind of cool sometimes. Oh, that's like really cool actually. Adding divisions to the box splits it into subdivisions, and you can kind of control how many divisions in each axis. So for now, I won't do that, but another fun thing to look at. And I think that's good. Let's do geometry. Oh, cool. Okay, that actually looks better than the one I just did. I kind of like how it's a little bit further back. Let's see. What if I brought that? There we go. So, right, just kind of play with it. Okay, fine. And then also I'm going to do another Fong. And maybe this one I'll just make it a little bit lighter. Or white, whatever, light gray. Okay, that doesn't look bad. And now, if you remember, go into light, shadows. Okay, just hit hard. Again, if you have an NVIDIA GPU, you can try soft and get some other little settings. Typically, hard will still work just fine. And now you kind of see. So this is also shows another problem. I'm on an iMac right now, and rendering shadows is a kind of idiosyncratic thing that certain GPUs, different GPUs do it in different ways, like AMD GPUs or NVIDIA, whatever. And off the bat, usually on an iMac, on a Mac with an AMD GPU, the shadows look pretty awful. You can see they're very, very choppy. Let's kind of move this light around and kind of see, because the light's kind of right here right now, but what if I did a transform? I mean, this is kind of cool too. You can imagine like animating the movement of the light. Maybe move the X a little bit. Kind of like when it has shadow on the actual structure itself. It's kind of cool. Okay, maybe I want it right. Yeah, in the beginning it was fine, I think. Okay, I kind of like this little shadow on that too. Okay, so how can we make the shadow look a little bit better? Couple ways. I guess the first, the easiest one would be if we go into the light parameters, if we go into view. So the reason why it's so pixelated, the light has a certain total view, and we can kind of see here in the display. So this is the total area that the light is covering, and actually we can kind of see our little jungle gym playground structure right here. So that total view of the light, if we look in the shadows here, has a shadow resolution of 1024 by 1024 pixels, which means like for all of the various objects that are going to be in this entire environment. So what if I had like objects up here and over here and over here that are in other parts of our scene? The light only has 1024 by 1024 pixels in order to render those shadows. So we can see our little thing right here is pretty small. So if this whole thing is 1024, then the amount of pixels available to render these shadows for this thing it's not very many. So we want to go into view and kind of shrink down the view to just the area where we need to render shadows, and that's going to make them higher resolution. I guess also, first thing we could try is to increase this. It needs to be in factors of 2. So 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, things like that. So we can already see that helped, right? That helped a lot, I think. But also, if I go into view, I can start to play around with this viewing angle method. And this starts to get tricky, right? We got focal length. We kind of see things disappear. So when I do this aperture, so imagine, okay, now I'm like changing this view right here, and you could see it. There's like no pixels available for this at all, basically, because it's so far away. What if I did aperture? So let's actually, what if I moved my null a little bit too? So if I did, actually no, let's not do that. Let's change this. There we go. Let's do something like that. So then you start kind of like tweaking where everything is. I mean, that's looking better than it was, actually. All right, so I've kind of, just by moving this focal length, because by default this just has a horizontal FOV, with it just gives you one value, which maybe that just keeps it easy. You could kind of play around with these. I was doing focal length and aperture because you get 2 different values to play with. But this kind of shows as you change this, FOV means field of view. Right there, you can kind of notice as I got zoomed in too much, so this shadow just got cut off. It's no longer rendering the shadow for that. So that's a kind of interesting little point there. So that looks good enough for now, I think. So that's going to be an endless process as you have shadows, especially if you have like objects throughout the whole scene, and they're spread out amongst the sort of XYZ geometric space. Getting your shadow coverage to look good as well as complete everywhere. That's going to be a lot of fine tuning. But I think that looks good enough. Kind of like it. Okay, cool. Oh, you know what? There's one more thing I wanted to do. I had a little vignette thing, a little vignette trick. Just really quickly, let's do another ramp. Because I want to make the edges dark. Like a little vignette filter. So to do that, I'm going to make a circle that's white in the middle and then black on the outside. So again, it looks like in the middle is black. I'm going to kind of reverse this. I'll make that white. And the other key is black. And again, instead of repeating, I will hold. And yeah, then a couple of things we could like try just changing the phase. That kind of works. And I could go ahead and just over this. I'm going to put this into a fit because this is 256 right now, and I'm working at 1280 because I want to have some control over how this is resized, basically. If I go fit and if I do fill, it kind of does it like that, which is fine. And if we did other horizontal, this is a little bit different. So this gives us a little options for how we want to do that. And then let's do multiply. So that's just kind of cool. You can see now it has a little dark vignette on the edges. Makes it look a little bit more dramatic, I think. Okay.